This is recorded March the 31st, 2014. Welcome to the Beyond Bitcoin Community Dev Hangout. We hold these hangouts every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time. We invite anyone who would like to participate or be interviewed about their project to join us on our Mumble server. Our main community is found at the Beyond Bitcoin subforum on bitsharestalk.org. If you would like to be interviewed, send a message to Fuzznuts, that's F-U-Z-N-U-T-S on bitsharestalk.org, or if you have a bitcointalk.org account, we can be reached at the Beyond Bitcoin Show account. We are a loosely organized show bordering on a podcast. We invite anyone who enjoys talking or hearing about all decentralized or blockchain-based applications. Questions can be typed in real time if you do not wish to talk. So enjoy the show and come participate.
Some natural background music and noise to listen to. With that said, we're going to start today with Bytemaster talking about giving us some updates on the BitShares project.
All right, thanks for having me. This has been an exciting week, and somebody has their audio on speaker.
Oh.
Is that better? All right, thank you. It's been an exciting week. We've gotten a lot done. The most significant progress in this past week is that we've converted everything over to use Titan transactions without having to do a hard fork of the blockchain. We have also revamped the RPC code to use code generation. This will allow us to automatically generate JavaScript, C++, PHP, and any other interfaces we need for talking to our wallet.
So we talked a little bit about that last week with regard to what RPC interfaces are all about. So you're effectively saying that the thread on the forums, they're talking about using NXT's GUI interface and doing that stuff. It's closer to being able for people to actually go out and change the BitShares wallets.
Our wallet is going to work much more like online banking, where you actually have accounts and all transfers are to one account from another account. So you'll have multiple accounts in your wallet. Now these are not like Bitcoin accounts where they're an account per contact or per person and you give everyone a unique address. This is you register your account with a name, and so you're always sending to or from a name, and you don't have to manually exchange addresses with anyone anymore.
What does Titan stand for?
Transfer invisibly to any name. So the idea here is that when you make a transaction, you want to avoid reusing addresses, because anytime you reuse an address, it becomes possible to do analysis of the blockchain and figure out who owns what. If you make a transaction that involves two or more of your addresses at the same time, blockchain analysis can show that you own both of those. If you send two or more things to one address, blockchain analysis will also tie all those things together. So the Bitcoin blockchain doesn't have a lot of privacy because a lot of the addresses are known to major exchanges. They know who you are, and they can easily follow the money from you to one or two people and then back to an exchange. There's really not a lot of privacy on the Bitcoin network to those who have access to Bitstamp's user database, which includes the government.
So are there any competing technologies that are doing similar things?
Darkcoin is doing similar stuff with their system, although I don't think they have a naming system built into it.
Sorry to interrupt. So effectively, anybody who builds a DAC using this is going to have Darkcoin's functionality with regard to privacy of transactions.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. I'm sure people would love to hear it.
I haven't looked too much into the details of Darkcoin, but I'm hoping to have a usability advantage because every time you send a transaction, in addition to sending the payment to a new address, there's also a memo section that identifies who the transaction's from and what it's for, but only the receiver can read the memo.
Joey D is asking, is name registration unique so no two identical names are possible?
Yes. On the blockchain, there's unique name registration. In your wallet, you can have, I like to think of them as listed and unlisted phone numbers. If you list your phone number, you have to have a unique name. But if you want to have a name that's not listed and actually give someone your number, you can do that as well. But the idea being that once you have someone's number, you can send them as many transactions as you want without tying them together, and they can know it's from you, even if you have a registered account or not.
I think you cut out. You could rewind what you're saying.
I don't know where I cut out. There's two types of accounts. You have listed and unlisted accounts or names. So if you want to publish your name with this would be a pseudonym, with your public key, then you can do that into the blockchain. You can also attach other miscellaneous data to your published name if you want to attach your email address or some other identifying information so that people can find you and send payments to you. You can publish all that into the blockchain. But if you want to operate in an unlisted mode, then you can give everyone your account number, and you only have one account number that you can give to everyone. You can put it on your business cards if you like, but it won't be in the blockchain. And those are the two types of accounts we have right now. And when you send money from one person to another, it's always from one account to another account, and there's always a from field and a memo field that identify who it's from and what it's for, but only the sender and the receiver actually can track it.
That's cool stuff. Somebody else, I interrupted, so feel free, please, to chime in at any time. If you had something to say, I wasn't meaning to interrupt. I just knew that Joey had put out that question before anybody else had.
So I would say that the high-level summary of where we are is we're working actively on a web wallet that's using our RPC API to maintain privacy and maximum ease of use. And we are actively testing right now, so you can join the thread and test. Now, the clients that are out there for testing right now are not using Titan. We hope to get a Titan test client out there for people to use this weekend, and then you can start using that. So right now it's still using the old system, which is the hierarchical wallet system, which gave you similar privacy, but is not nearly as robust or easy to use. So that's where we are right now.
Are you still planning?
Go ahead.
Are you still planning on moving ProtoShares to DPOS?
As soon as humanly possible.
And what are we looking for as far as the time for that?
Once we have a successful web wallet public test, then we will launch XT. And after we've launched XT and had that be successful, then we'll migrate PTS.
I know I have a question regarding your testnet. How's that been going?
It's been going surprisingly well. It's been running nonstop for almost a week. And we've been able to upgrade the client and implement Titan without having to restart the network.
So it's pretty smooth so far. Now, out of curiosity, do you see any potential scalability issues with it that haven't been necessarily tested because, say, you might need more delegates or nodes joining the system?
Right now, the biggest scalability issue we've identified is the blockchain synchronization time. I think it's very similar to the early days of Bitcoin, where we we fetch one block at a time, and so it's limited by latency, round trip time between your client and the clients you're talking to. And because we have so many blocks, it can take several minutes to synchronize after just 1 week.
So round trip meaning, for those who aren't technical, like the loop that it takes for it to talk to one side and for the other side to side B to respond to side A effectively.
Yeah, the easiest way to think about it is you can have a ton of bandwidth with a bunch of DVDs in the back of a car traveling down the interstate, but your latency, your round trip time is very slow. So we're not limited by the amount of data we're pushing, we're limited by the amount of time it takes for a packet to go someplace and come back to us. And when you're talking about internet speeds, that dramatically slows down the synchronization time. Once you're synchronized, it's not really that big of an issue because one block's coming out every 30 seconds and you can easily stay synchronized. It's just the catch-up time is currently slow, and we'll probably have to upgrade that. So what we're planning on doing is having another breaking revision of the network protocol to enhance some of these things and give us greater flexibility to both add new fields without having to change the protocol, so more future-proofing, and also to accelerate things like synchronization.
So if you have a list of other items that you have to cross off before you are comfortable with everything at this juncture, how long would it be?
All I know is that we've got 5 or 6 guys working around the clock on this stuff, and we are taking issues as they come up. Eric was sidetracked from working on support of forking at the network layer in order to do code generation for the API. That was done to accelerate the development speed for the rest of us. And now that he's mostly done with that, he's going to go back to getting the fork code work, which I believe he said should only be a day or two if nothing else comes up.
Sounds good.
So we are actively going as fast as we can, trying to get as many tests as we can. And I would say right now things are in a rapid state of flux, but constantly getting closer to something we could release. I mean, it's going to get more and more usable. So we have a lot of people coming in the next week to start working on this full time.
So to be safe, you can say that it would be easy to put something out there, but you're still going to have bugs that you're going to have to fix while it's out. It's going to take more time. You won't be able to accomplish more for the end system. So you guys end up doing a lot of this stuff before you ever release anything, like onto the market.
It is certainly true that if we were to release something today, which in theory I could initialize the Genesis block and launch a DPOS, delegated proof of stake version of PTS and XDS this afternoon, but then we'd have to support that network and upgrade the users, and that would slow overall development down. So we're trying to really test our ability to upgrade in place to make sure that our code is as future-proof as possible and that we can minimize the impact on people. Considering that we are also going to be importing people's private keys from their Bitcoin PTS wallets, we also don't want to release code that is likely to leak information about those keys due to debug statements that we haven't removed or anything like that. So there is an audit process that we need to go through the code before we can launch officially to make sure that we are not accidentally dumping private keys to log files.
Now, is there any guarantee that these things aren't happening with the other technologies out there? Like that these risks might be just floating around and people are using the wallets not realizing it?
There's always a possibility. Most of the other code out there is based upon Bitcoin, and that has 5 years of hardening behind it. If you remember when Next came out, it was extremely buggy at first. I don't know how buggy it is still today, but I think we're going to go through a similar process. We just want to try to minimize the bugs there. What we really are aiming for is to minimize the need for future changes and make sure that we've got the right system in place, the right foundation upon which to build. And that is the real challenge, because anyone can launch something, but launching something with longevity is the challenge.
And when you build a solid foundation, effectively, that's what you're going to have, because you're going to have more options. You're going to know that most of it has been tested. So that's good. With regard to the testnet, do you guys need more people? Do you think it would be helpful to have more people sign it? Or startup nodes, rather?
Yeah, just give me a second. I can give you an update of how many people are connected right now. So right now on the test network, we've got 2 connections, and one of them's me. So there's not many people actively on it. But earlier, we had 5 or 6 people on it testing things. As in the coming week, we're going to need a lot more testers.
Have you guys thought of potential ways of integrating, like, reward systems or anything like that could bring people on?
That's a good idea. We haven't thought that heavily about that because we've been so focused on core features right now.
Oh, of course. I'm just bringing it up. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but just throw out ideas and we can see where they go. You've already covered the implications of Titan. Now, I have no clue what this... I'm going to laugh a little bit but when I say it, but it says... Xerox here on the subreddit says, what are the implications of Titan and Satan, or at Satan? I don't know how to say it right now. When looking at Dark Wallet and Dark Coin and Monero.
I'm not familiar with Monero.
It's an altcoin. I can't really tell you too much about it because I haven't researched enough on Monero, to be honest with you.
I think that the bigger innovation is really the usability and not the hiding your privacy. A lot of these other systems, they aim at trying to be a coin like Bitcoin that gives you privacy, but they haven't really solved the usability issue. And the usability issue is the single biggest issue facing this entire industry.
I'd 100% agree. I mean, and you can see the exact same trend that goes through history with the internet. I mean, as the internet got easier for everybody to use and more, well, I want to say dummy-proof, but more user-friendly. You find like a large adoption that occurs after that, as long as there's utility, which we know that with the internet there was.
Exactly. And I'm not claiming that our user interface is going to be the most usable right now, but the key to good usability is to have a solid backend that facilitates the usage paradigm that you would like to have.
You know, I often think like competitions and things like this would be really awesome once you guys have the RPC out there and it's all working, and people can go out and actually create their own GUI interfaces based off of this. Having competition for BTS or something would be like huge, I think.
I agree. I think that'd be a good idea. We'll probably offer competitions for anyone who can effect a double spend or a chain fork or any violation of the rules of the network.
That sounds cool. Here, hold on a second. I'm going to edit this out.
So, Bytemaster, did you just say that there were 2 people connected to the testnet at this moment?
There are now 3 people connected to the test network.
And how would I be able to verify that I am connected?
If you say get info on the command line interface to the wallet.
This actually brings up another idea that I was thinking about with regard to this. if there could be a volunteer in the community who knows how to set up a delegate, who could go on and set up like an internet hangout, like a Google Hangout, and allow people to log in and actually go through setting one up. I'm sure there are.
We are going to be putting together instruction how-to on becoming a delegate, and going to start a thread on BitShares Talk for people who are interested in being an initial delegate. So obviously we have to select an initial slate for the initial condition, and after that you can start voting people out or in on the blockchain. But there's lots of opportunity for people who would like to be an initial delegate.
Well, out of curiosity, is it going to take any special system? Like, are you going to have like some really ridiculous setup, or what are we talking?
A DigitalOcean node is all you need, although having geographically diverse nodes is probably a benefit.
So essentially, like, say, effectively, I learn how to do this. I could set up nodes like Xerox is doing to give to charities, to give the money to charities that's made in the transaction fees.
Absolutely.
So effectively, our community could just go out and find like a bunch of different companies and say, hey, we want to set this up for you, and if we can get it trustworthy enough for you, I mean, like charities rather, we could all do that and essentially reach out to help people for a very low cost to ourselves as well.
So a standard VPS would work? It doesn't need like a higher disk I/O?
There's the initial qualifications, and then there's, as the network grows, what you need, and they are different.
Makes sense. Back to the get info thing. How is it obvious when you're not connected? Because I thought I was connected, but then I'm seeing that my number of blocks is not going up. So I'm thinking, was there a hard fork? So I basically installed this, I don't know, like a week ago, and haven't touched it. Just leave it running in the background.
There was a hard fork almost a week ago. So if you've been up for a week, then that might have been the case. How many connections on network num connections do you see? Well, this is actually probably a better discussion for the forum, where there's lots of people that can help you. But the get info will dump what revision you have, how many connections you have, and every other piece of information you might possibly want.
Yeah, I've been using that. I just zoned in on the wrong output line.
Well, I guess this is a good place to jump in and say, give another question by Joey D. He's saying, is scripting and contracts possible or planned?
All things are possible, not yet, but eventually we'll get there.
All right, and his second question is, have you seen the proposal on the forums to use a signed message instead of the private key itself to claim the stake in the Genesis block?
Yes, I've seen those messages and suggested almost as much. That is definitely something we are looking into, because that would allow a lot of people who gave from Coinbase to access their funds.
What does this mean for the newbie who's listening?
You know, the goal here, the threat that we have is, if a lot of DACs come out and they all require you to import your private keys, then someone could create a DAC that will steal your private keys, and that could be a major security compromise. So the goal is to have a single program that you trust, your Bitcoin wallet, your ProtoShares wallet, and use that to sign the transaction without ever actually giving the DAC your
the DAC your private key.
Yeah, if you don't have to, you can access your balance without giving the private key to a wallet or software that you don't trust.
So, and that's very important then, because I've read on the forum, they have talked about, and this is what you're talking about, somebody could create a DAC and say, hey, we're going to honor AGS and PTS holders, go ahead and send the private key, and Now they have your private key. Everybody's private key.
Or say we're going to honor Bitcoin holders and steal everyone's Bitcoin.
And you're trying to protect Bitcoin holders too, then, essentially.
Right.
You cut out Bytemaster.
Yeah, we're trying to protect everyone as much as possible. I don't know if we'll have this from day one because there's some technical challenges there on the usability side of things. But before you accept anything released by a third party that you don't trust, you should definitely, so before you use any third party software to access your Bitcoin or PTS wallets, you should certainly make sure you trust or look for a better solution than importing your private keys. Obviously, if we produce such a solution, you'd be trusting us anyway. So I don't think it makes much of an impact on what we're doing, but certainly for third parties. And of course, we'd want to work on ways to enhance things for people that are using our software as well.
There is another question from the subreddit. This one's actually for me. But investor concerns with the current marketing path have become a dominant theme in the forums of late. It is relatively clear that BitShares, along with DPOS, are technically superior to nearly every other blockchain protocol. BitShares has truly open source development as compared to Next. BitShares also philosophically bases itself on multiple competing blockchains, again, far and above the rest. How can the community best assist the rise of BitShares based on its true potential? The fact that third-party DAC developers must be talked into honoring AGS, while airdrops on Doge and BTC are considered from the start, should prove that marketing and community presence is extremely important. Do you guys understand that?
Yeah, I believe what you're saying is that our community is not strong enough to justify a airdrop on us. No one's going to talk about airdropping on us. But perhaps this is more of a case of our community is the only one talking about airdropping to other communities. Have you heard of any other DAC out there that's talking about airdropping to anyone else? So it might just be a matter of perspective.
Honestly, I don't know of one. Can anybody else here say yes that there is one?
There's Lotto shares put together by Free Trade, but he's part of our community effectively. So the idea of airdropping comes from that. And he honored AGS and PTS.
I think the airdropping I think it's a brilliant idea. Essentially, it makes all altcoins a lot more valuable if you have DAC creators who are actually developing and honoring certain communities, which is a very cool little manifestation in the ecosystem.
Yep.
Did you guys actually plan on that happening, or was this something that kind of like came out of nowhere?
Oh, we realized right away that you could use the airdrop technique to upgrade any cryptocurrency out there, including Bitcoin.
Brilliant. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit with Xerox next point, and he made it in response on the subreddit. Under the point that I made, it is relatively clear that BitShares, along with DPOS, are technically superior to every other blockchain protocol, and BitShares has truly open source development. Xerox made the point that it has much fair distribution. Is this true?
Well, fairness is all a matter of personal judgment. But if you go for equal opportunity for the most people, that is certainly true for most proof-of-stake systems. For example, we have a zero pre-mine, equal opportunity mining for anyone with PTS, and that's 50%. And the other 50% is effectively just mining again. It's just economic mining instead of consuming power to your power bill, to your power company. So we also have the longest window of donations, 200 days versus others. So we've given everyone equal opportunity. In fact, I think the only one where the IPO is cheaper, or IPO, we're not really doing an IPO here, but the opportunity to get in before it's launched is long enough that those who got in early actually paid more than the people that are getting in late, even though there is more uncertainty early than there is later. So I think it's impossible, well, not impossible, but very difficult to argue that anything else can be seen more fair from an equal opportunity perspective.
Well, you guys are still offering, there's still, 48 days for the AGS fund?
Exactly.
Now, I wouldn't mind, I'd like to give you the opportunity right now to explain to people how the AGS fund came about and how it works, because this is something that I've seen a lot of, I call it FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I feel personally like you guys did a pretty good job of letting people know and gauging the community interest on different methods and means of funding yourselves. But could you give the community a little bit of an idea as to how this all came about and what it was for?
Well, back in the early days of ProtoShares, PTS, we were going to use mining for everything we were doing. But PTS sort of taught us that mining doesn't work. We also recognized that people were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars mining PTS, and that money was not going to fund development, but it was being burned. So we started to look at mining as a black box and tried to figure out a way to not take any more money out of the community, but just redirect the money from the power companies to the development of the system. And in that way, increase the value of what everyone is burning their money on, whether it's paying their electric bill or renting servers at Amazon. We were trying to redirect that revenue instead of making those companies rich. So around Christmas, we announced the plan for donations, where it's a competitive donation on a daily basis. It's kind of like mining is a competitive process. The more people that compete, the less you get per amount of effort, amount of money you put in. And the same thing works with AGS. The more people that donate on a given day, the less you get. So it encourages.
Can I ask you, interrupt you right here, because you make a good point that it's essentially the same as mining for a block every day, and getting the reward split amongst you from like a mining pool or something to that effect, right? And the big difference to me is that anybody can go out and work and get a couple dollars and put into that. Not necessarily everybody can go out and put together a nice rig that gets them anywhere near what those $2 of them doing something that they're more effective with in their lives, that would be more profitable for them to take that work and turn it into AGS.
Mining is kind
Is
of
that
like
a fair assessment?
Yeah, mining is kind of like an airdrop on the tech savvy, and it excludes everyone who can't mine. The idea that everyone has the opportunity to mine a little bit on their home computer is like, okay, everyone has an opportunity to get $50 worth, and because that's how much power they're able to consume. And if you want to get involved with more than $50 a month, then you'll have to go on an exchange somewhere. And the reality is that even with AGS, if you have a large mining operation, you're better off mining the most profitable altcoin, selling it and buying or donating. That's the way to maximize your stake. This idea that you have to mine the coin directly is kind of missing the point. It's kind of getting obscuring the reality of the situation, which is that no matter what, you end up paying for it.
So what do you think about this whole there are a lot of people who are saying that AGS kind of like locked people in to their investment, and PTS, as I understood it, was made to be liquid. AGS was intended to not be liquid. I don't know if you guys have never said anything, to my knowledge, about being certain of that and not being up to the potential for change if the community wanted it. But
AGS is made liquid every single time somebody honors it to launch something. It is also not an investment vehicle. So being liquid or not is not, you are donating to support the cause, support the industry, support the betterment of mankind through our particular approach. And you're trusting us to use that to produce something that's for the benefit of everyone. The fact that people decide to airdrop on AGS donors because they're proven to be solid people that are willing to actually contribute and make a difference in the world compared to other people that want a free ride or whatnot, is independent of what we're doing. So any return or expectation of return from AGS is purely karma and not an investment perspective. And we've tried to make it very clear from the beginning that these are no strings attached donations. And that's very important that we emphasize that. I know a lot of people like to think about it as an investment, but it's no more an investment than an investment in a new used car. Or an investment in your family. It's not expected that way. Obviously, different people have different opinions about how the universe is going to pay them back and how the market is going to reward them for their contribution to our cause. But I think it's very important that we recognize that, particularly because if we start calling them investments and talking about them as investments, that could actually undermine the entire cause that we're going for.
it's very interesting to me because the AGS fundraiser I thought was really cool. Secondly, because we do have to trust you, but the thing is, you rely on trust in the industry to remain viable. So that's, it's a two-way street. So people should be aware of that. And I don't see any time, I'm not trying to kiss butt or anything, but I don't see any time that you guys have actually gone out of your way to cause problems. It seems like you try to engineer your solutions generally as well as possible when they arise and change the equation, so to speak. As far as AGS funds, I know I hold some. I know a lot of the people who come here to this Mumble meetup, frankly, hold AGS. Can you make it? You intend on honoring AGS. So if you could make that clear, if you don't honor AGS, then you're pretty much your business is not going to be very good with your own community, correct?
Well, there is that. Obviously, we strongly support people that do honor it and that will do it. And I have no doubt that someone is going to launch a DAC that's going to honor AGS and everything like that. So it's going to be recognized in new DACs that are launched. We have people have created tools out there, not us, that will allocate and build Genesis blocks for you, and any allocation for PTS versus AGS you'd like. So there's lots of tools out there that help people to recognize the AGS holders. So, yeah, I have full faith in the market to honor AGS.
Well, I wanted to bring it up because it's one of those places where people who don't know all the information necessarily, and let's face it, a lot of people don't go to the best place probably, which is the BitShares Talk forum. But a lot of people don't understand the basics of some of these things because they were the first time that they had ever happened in the industry. A lot of the stuff. ProtoShares, your business model is different. So it's not a cutout coin that everybody can say, oh, let's pump and dump it, and we know how this is going to go. We're investors in, and we know how this is going to go. A lot of us are here because it's something new and it's something that's trying to be something more. So I want to thank you guys for that. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and Joey D has another question. Could you talk a bit about people wanting a free ride? Because I think many investors seem to forget the DAC needs employees, which are shareholders themselves, before they will be going anywhere. So people need to realize who the employees are in the DAC concept. That's a very good point, Joey.
Thank you, Joey. This goes along with the discussion we had last week and the ongoing discussion on the BitShares Talk forum regarding dilution and compensation of employees, or what are employees in the concept of a DAC. The whole idea of a DAC is to engineer economic incentives to cause people to voluntarily cooperate to achieve the desired end. You need all different types of people to do this, and you can't expect people to do it for free. So in this particular case, the delegates, the people that are running servers, are highly valuable members of a DAC. A DAC will not survive without them. Wants to grow, those roles have real expenses. Anyone who is running a full node or client, which initially is going to be everyone, incurs costs and is in some way or another contributing to the distribution, replication of the blockchain, as well as the validation of the blockchain. So every single person who owns shares in a DAC is also an employee of a DAC. You can view a DAC as a giant employee-owned company. So the question is, do a lot of the employees just sit around and collect income and seek rent, not doing anything? Or do we allow some employees to make more money by providing more service? It all comes down to how do you evaluate the performance of an employee if they are going to be given special treatment. For example, a delegate. How much should they be paid? Should we dilute shareholders in order to pay a marketing firm to market things better, pay developers to improve the usability, and so on and so forth? And I think the real challenge that DACs face as we move forward is moving beyond the reliance on charity or relying on trust. Those are the two things we have right now. We need a new model that allows the shareholders to hire developers, hire marketing firms, and make things happen. Now, I recently posted a thread on the dilution. Is it fair to dilute shareholders in a DAC in order to pay for things, whether they're marketing or development? And that is a complex topic that has a lot of debate about the morality of those particular actions. And I'm just going to bring it all back to the concept of making a profit. If you're diluting shareholders, you better bring in more capital than you are issuing. If a company diluted the shareholders but gained no capital in return, that would be a major problem. But if the value of the capital they receive is greater than the value of the shares they issued, or the amount the shares were diluted, then in reality the price per share goes up, even though the percentage of the company you own goes down. So recognizing that DACs and these blockchain-based technologies are just an advanced, trust-free, distributed way of managing a company, I think we need to look at all the rules that apply to businesses and apply them to DACs as well. No company is going to survive if all it has is shareholders and no employees. We hope only in what we're doing to make companies more transparent, with greater integrity, and more efficient, so that you can reduce prices and deliver services to customers more effectively.
Is dilution even possible currently, or that is enforced by the blockchain, correct? So you guys would have to add support to actually be able to dilute shares?
Yes, this is all theoretical development of DAC. So you can write a DAC that will do anything, including dilute shares.
So that's not enforced by the blockchain, because I was thinking that perhaps you actually would not be able to do that.
These are all information-based systems. You can make the information anything you want. What actually enforces these things is social consensus. The reason Bitcoin cannot buy more than the rate it's being inflated is because it would be recognized as a change to the rules, a change to the expectations, and therefore none of the merchants or users would actually accept a change in the code that did that. However, it'd be possible to launch a clone of Bitcoin that has different rules, and there's 200 of them out there right now that all inflate differently and have different rules. You know, if you look at Memory Coin 2, they hire employees. Now, we've obviously seen some of the pitfalls with using voting as a means of doing this, but you get the basic idea.
Out of curiosity, with regard to memory coin, I know this is a little bit off of the original topic, but this is pretty valid because there's a lot of talk about memory coin with regard to this on the forums. Do you think that maybe memory coin's concept was a little bit ahead of its of the capacity for the tools at the time to accomplish what they're trying to do? Like, for instance, I think a prediction market in many ways is like a voting system, only much more efficient. What do you think about these things?
Well, a prediction market's very different than a voting system on a critical aspect. When you're voting, you say what you want. In a prediction market, in order to make money, you have to guess what everyone else wants. And that changes the dynamic entirely. So that even though I might want no president at all, I'm not going to bet in a prediction market that no president is going to be elected. I'm going to bet on either the Republicans or the Democrats because that's what I think that the masses are going to do. So the reality is that each person who goes and enters a prediction market is not trying to control the thing. They're just trying to provide the information they have about what everyone around them thinks. And that is actually a much richer source of information, a much more accurate source of information. And not only that, there's a Nash equilibrium. They lose money if they are not honest.
So, out of curiosity, what types of systems could be put in place? I mean, could those types of systems be used to effectively find the best person for a certain job? Do you think? This concept's very interesting to me.
That is the entire idea behind a thread I posted earlier about general purpose DACs. A general purpose DAX allows anyone to interview with the community for a position. They can define their own position, and it creates a prediction market on what their salary should be. It can be either a salary paid for from transaction fees or paid for from dilution. At any time, if that prediction market crashes, they lose their job or they don't get paid. But it's a way of having consensus in the marketplace about what this person should be doing on this particular DAC. And with that particular model, you can literally have one DAC and it can enter any business area. And it can basically bid. Anyone can say, hey, I'd like to be this role. I'd like to be marketing. I'd like to be a developer, and this is what I'm going to do. And then they can get a small development stipend based upon what the community thinks of them.
So essentially, it's capturing what a voting system is trying to capture, but with a more market-based solution. Is that a way of boiling it down?
Effectively, a voting system is trying to capture individual opinions, and a prediction market is trying to capture the group opinion. And the aggregation of individual opinion and the group opinion are not the same thing.
Okay, well, we can get pretty deep into this, it seems, and it's probably outside of what we should be probably talking about a little bit in here. With regard to DPOS, I've heard some people say, beginning to kind of associate it with Ripple, as far as like centralization issues. And I wanted to see what you thought about that, and if you could describe it a little bit to the community at large, how DPOS works, and a low level kind of view.
All right, it's very different from Ripple in one critical way. In Ripple, you have an initial board, and they have to approve each new board that comes on. The Ripple holders, the shareholders, have no say whatsoever in who is on the unique node list. Whereas with what we've put together, everyone who's a shareholder, a member, if you will, of the DAC, has a say on who the processing nodes are. So it's almost completely opposite of Ripple in that respect. If they're saying that 100 nodes is centralizing, and then they say, well, compared to what? Compared to Bitcoin with their 5 or 6 mining pools controlling it all, compared to Next with they're basically delegated proof of stake as well. They're just using a different form of delegation. So it really seems like we're no different. We just made a compromise between decentralization and efficiency, recognizing that these delegates are already performing a single function: include transactions, timestamp them. They do not have arbitrary power. And as long as you can trust a single delegate to include your transactions, it's really almost impossible to control for any one person.
I'd like to say, I'd like to propose something, and you can comment on it and agree or disagree on it. So there's a proof of work system and a proof of stake system, or let's take the delegated proof of stake. So with the delegated proof of stake, you have the advantage, and some people would interpret it as a disadvantage as well, that the shareholder votes. The shareholder vote in terms of, they are in control of their shares, of course, which is the case also in proof of work, but they are also in control of the operation of the network. So they can select the delegates, and they then operate and make the system work. Yeah? And so now critiques would say that this at the same time is a disadvantage, because when those two things, those two voting abilities are separated, you are not in danger, because if someone takes over the whole stake, then with the proof of work system, that would not matter that much, because those two things are separated, right? So
with a proof of work system, you don't take over the coins, you take over the proof of work. And you just take it. It's two different classes of shares. One is shares based on hash power, the other is shares based on equity. It's much easier to buy the hash power than it is to buy the equity. And not only that, but the proof of work hash power becomes a barrier to entry for competition. Whereas with the DAC, if you buy up 51% of the shares, congratulations, you made everyone a lot of money. They start a new company without you. And then you're no better off than when you started.
Right, I would agree to that. I would also say that a proof of stake system is more secure. It takes more money to take over the network. It's more efficient in terms of security versus the cost that the security costs. But the argument is still that because those two kinds of votes are separated, in the case, which is in an expensive case, but in the case that a big majority of the stake is taken over by a hostile entity, and that would be a bigger threat to the network than in a proof of work system.
Well, let's talk about what the hostile entity can do. There's only one thing they can do after they take over: shut it down, partially or entirely. They don't get any power to change people's balances or anything else. So if they're going to buy it all up just to shut it down, and all the users have to do is start up a new system without their stake in it to continue, then they actually haven't gained anything. So they won't even bother trying, because even if they achieve their goal, they don't actually gain anything in the end.
Right.
Out of curiosity, how would the database, like the change states from the database, affect this at all? You recall what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it is about the 1 hour mark, and I've got a lot to do on getting this stuff done. So if we can wrap it up, I'd like to do that now.
Sounds good. Well, it is about an hour. I am far away from home myself, so I appreciate everybody coming out. This looks like a larger group than normal, so it's good to see that we're building things up. It's good to see Stan here. It's good to see Toast here. I would hope to someday possibly get you guys on here to talk, and maybe let Bytemaster get some of his work done too, with free up a little time for him to maybe play with his babies or do whatever else he needs to do.
Toast is sitting behind me right now.
Say what?
Toast is sitting behind me right now.
Eating a Hot Pocket.
In the BitShares bunker.
Well, thank you guys for showing up. And this will be the end of this community meetup, and we'll start it up next Saturday.
All right.
I
See you
will
guys
say,
soon.
yep, thanks, Bytemaster. I'll let everybody else know that Delulu has, I put a link in there. I haven't made it a hyperlink yet. But in the initial banner when you log in, he has set up a poll, and Toast added a doodle calendar just to see the availability for Mumble meetups. And with that said, I'd like everybody to take the opportunity to add themselves to that and help us figure out a little bit better what days we're looking at to ensure maximum capability of attendance. With that said, have a good one, guys.
Yep. See ya.
Thanks.
Thanks, Delulu. And hey, Joey, thanks for always asking amazing questions, man. Amazing questions.